Good evening. At this time, we'll open the meeting for the Carver Finance Committee for May 23rd, 2019. Can we please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. We are on Area 58 tonight, and since there's nobody here for public comment, we can go into the reorganization. We do not have a full board tonight, so I would entertain a motion to table to the next Finance Committee meeting when we have a full board.
I make a motion we table the reorganization vote.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So that'll be the next meeting. Okay. On the Carver, Massachusetts grant program. In your packet is a email from Patrick Keneally, who will not be here tonight, but he sent me some thoughts. I did move a couple of his thoughts into the application. The first one being, must be a 501c3. I added that to eligible organizations. You see it in bold. And the other one on the back, I added the email below contact person. I did not get into the other stuff that was on there because I thought that was worthy of us discussing. So what are we missing? What do we need to add to it? What are our thoughts? Anybody?
So when I was reading it, I noticed we had a space for the percentage, and I didn't know if we ever decided on
That's a good thing to bring up tonight.
I was thinking it had to be at least 75% back to the town, not all.
I agree with that.
I think we had talked about that.
I think we talked about 75% in the beginning.
75 sound about right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's put, doesn't require a motion. Let's just pencil in 75. Anything else? And I'll go over the notes. You might want to read Patrick's,
Under the application procedures, I recommend that we put a not later than date submission of the grant application.
okay, let's come up with some date. Yeah, that's right.
That way we'll have a chance to at least have one meeting prior to us awarding the awards.
So typically, we would probably want to take these applications in beginning,
I'd say not later than the end of February.
and that would give us March and April. We're kind of crunching Finance Committee stuff in March, and then we have town meeting in April, so we could have the grants all ready to go by like May, and then get them done. Actually, we could get them done the same night, get them in, get them interviewed, and get them done typically the same night if we had to have even a double meeting in May.
Well, if we do and approve all of them prior to the town meeting, can we announce them?
Well, they still have to come in.
That's what I mean, if they come in here
Yeah,
by
actually, we
February,
could, then we could announce them at town meeting. That's a really
announce
good
it at
idea. I
town
like
meeting and say,
that.
look, this is the ones that won the award, and I think that would tell everybody we're actually looking at these things and we're actually putting this together.
And it's consistent with prior years where you leave town meeting, people know what their grants are.
Right.
I like that.
And they go from there.
Why don't we, yes, ma'am.
Can I just ask one question?
Yes.
All the people who were listed in the citizens petition article at town meeting, are they currently all 501c3s?
I don't know.
Because I'm just thinking
I
that-
do know that Shane Gives Thanks is. I'm assuming Social Community Action is.
Yeah.
I don't know about the other ones.
Okay,
And unfortunately, I don't know whether it's that it's a deep, dark secret or whatever, but I asked for the actual warrant applications, and I didn't get those. I got a list that was very vague as far as even the contact information. So I don't know how to get a hold of these people.
Oh.
I know how to get a hold of Social Community Action, and I knocked on Shane's door, and Crystal was supposed to send me her mailing address and everything, and she didn't do that. So, you know, I mean, we certainly want to help all these organizations, and I'll drop an application. Once it's completed, I'll drop it off to them. But the other groups are going to have to give us some information so we can send them out an application.
And the only reason why I said that is if historically there's an organization that's been getting or receiving funds and they're not a 501c3, would that pose a problem? Because then you'd have to tell them no, even if they had historically always received it.
What's the board think? What do you think?
Isn't what's presented at town meeting, is the requirement that they be 501c3? There's no requirement. So to the extent that there's no requirement at town meeting, I think they would have to provide proof of being a 501c3 status for this particular grant, which is not a requirement for town meeting.
I think
They
we
could still
have-
petition town meeting
Yeah.
with an
Well, they
article.
always can still
Like they
petition.
always
town
have.
meeting.
They always can,
Right,
yeah.
but with respect, I'm sorry.
So we did say at town meeting we would grant everyone who had asked for.
Yes, we
their-
did.
Their money, so I think that this year they're just gonna get it, but then next year, if they're not a 501c3.
I agree with
they don't
that.
get it.
I think we made that modification because of Shane Gives Thanks and the $6,000, which will run over our $5,000 limit. So we didn't want that to be an issue.
We did, but we said everybody would get it.
Yes, that is correct, we did. And I certainly don't want it to come down to an issue of they're not a 501c3. I don't want that to run afoul of the anti-aid amendment either, but I don't think that's a requirement. So we've made it a requirement here because we truly want a nonprofit. You know, just because we have a charitable group that chooses to be not a 501c3, I mean, this is taxpayer money we're giving out.
Yeah, I would have a hard time believing that many charitable groups aren't
Yeah.
501c3s,
Yeah.
because that's how they're gonna garner most of their funding anyways.
Tax deduction.
Sure.
Yeah.
When you paid out grants in the past, did they provide that information typically as,
No, they
even
said,
though they weren't required, that they?
no, because I mean, what they do is they send the petition to the selectman's office. The selectman's office would get the bill. The selectman's office authorizes it and then
Right,
submits
to
it.
show up on the warrant, and that's pretty much it.
So you're telling me the procedure is town meeting votes to give them the money, and they send the bill to the selectman's office, they sign off on it, and you just write the check?
Well, because, I mean, I will say that when I came in, that was always the practice. And sometimes, actually, what I will say is when a department authorizes a bill, the agreement is that that department has looked at it, that they're authorizing it, that there's something legitimate underpinning it. I can't ask for every single bill, like, is this a legitimate
Sure.
expense? You know, so the belief is always that they've provided the proof here.
Yeah, but in this case here, town meeting approves the funding, so theoretically, the Board of Selectmen have no further actions to
Right,
take.
I was just thinking the same thing. The bill comes
Their
in,
action was to put it on the warrant,
that's right.
and that's it. You know, once it's been, and then once town meeting votes it, it's done.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. The bill comes into the selectman's office, and whoever opens that bill says, oh yeah, that was approved at town meeting, stamps it, and off it goes to accounting. You know, we're done.
I don't even think there's a whole lot you could do to stop that if
No.
the meeting authorized
No, you're right.
it.
Is it public information, groups belonging to a 501c? I mean, is there some way you can
Yeah, well,
Various websites
Yeah.
out there that you
Websites.
can go and certify.
find the names of the groups?
Yeah, I forget the name of the website off the top of my head, but I know we used to use that quite a bit in Scouts, you know, when we ran the Boy Scout program in town, and they needed to, you know, verify, you know, charitable organizations.
okay, so let's get some wording down. What do we want to do for dates then? We can do January 1st is when the program is eligible, and then the applications must be in by February 28th. That gives us all of March, and then gives us a good week or so in April that we still can approve stuff and still bring it to town meeting. I like that idea of this is what we've done, this is who's getting it this year, because now
Should
it's,
we make it sooner? Because we reviewed a lot of budgets.
Yeah.
In March last year.
we could do November?
I don't know, I'm just thinking like we did a lot of budgets in March.
It might not be enough time to really look at others.
Why don't we put the program open from November 1st? And the deadline is February 15th.
Yeah.
Because that would still give us a meeting in February, a meeting or two in March. There's always the meeting before town meeting in April. So that would really give us 4 meetings.
Do they need 3 months, November, December, January, to put together their request?
I just don't want them, I don't want them with a gun to their head, you know what I mean? I'm not sure, we can always tweak it in the future, I just don't know what will work. Obviously, this year it's gonna be pretty simple. This year, we're gonna just send these applications out saying, get them back to us as soon as you can, so we can get you guys, you know, all set.
I'd probably suggest the deadline being January 31st, just so that we have time. There's a lot going on for budgets and everything else.
So they can really come in anytime up to January 31st, which isn't a terrible thing either.
No, I think that's fine.
I mean, you could open it early because it's the
Yeah,
same thing every single year.
Sure.
I mean, it's not like their amount that they're gonna request is gonna change or anything like that.
Sure.
It's not a big application.
Well, I want to keep it that way.
Yeah.
I want to keep it simple. What do you think?
So they would all be in, pick a meeting that they.
By the end of January, they would all be in. And the only problem you can run into then is that it says in here that they're going to come in and we're going to give them a quick interview. So I don't want that to be
It's gonna be a lie detector test?
no. I just don't want it to be a challenge for them with, well, you got February and March, so yeah.
I mean, you could, like, honestly, you could open it July 1st. I mean, it
Yeah,
doesn't
there's
really,
no contingent, right.
Yeah.
You can have it open and advertise and.
That's actually a great idea. Why don't we just open it for the fiscal year with the deadline being January? Let them send them in whenever they want.
Yeah.
They can sit in a file.
The website, by the way, to verify 501c3 status is guidestar.org. So GuideStar, so that'll let you kind of supplement it. But you can also ask for verification of 501c3 status because they would have that.
Well, we're asking for a tax ID number.
Right.
So that's going to be
Ask for
their,
that verification.
that's going to be their tax exempt verification. So, yeah, why don't we do July 1st is the opening, and the deadline to have the applications in by would be, I don't know, pick a date in January. I like January 15th, just to get it.
Sure.
Why don't we just do that?
Yeah.
Okay, so we can,
Plenty of time.
so the program each year would open July 1st, so which is the new fiscal year, and the application deadline would be January 15th. And then we'd make the awards, we'd make the notification at town meeting, so the actual award, the money would go out following town meeting. And that way there, if they move town meeting around like they did this year, we're not bound to a date. So we could put down following town meeting or the first meeting in May, however you guys, whatever you guys think.
You get the town meeting, all we're gonna say is, these are the agencies that got awards. We're not asking the town meeting
Right,
to
right.
vote on that, yes or no. It's just, this is what we're gonna do, so we don't have 27 people jumping up.
No, but that's, we'd make that announcement, and then we could make the checks, we could actually cut the checks right after town meeting. Would that work for you?
so actually, well, because like the town meeting that we just had, April town meeting, those funds are coming from raise and appropriate. They're coming from FY20 raise and appropriate funds.
Right, so first of all, you want to say after annual town meeting, not just any town meeting, because we
Right.
sometimes have
Yeah,
specials.
yeah.
And then you have to say at the beginning of the next fiscal year.
You could do it, I mean, you could cut the check July 1st, but it would have to wait until the new fiscal year.
Right.
This money is in this
So that, the one that,
FY20.
the April one that you just had, that one can be cut 7/1/19 or after.
Oh, I see what
Yeah.
you're saying.
Yeah.
So this is, yeah.
Yeah, because it's from raise and appropriate.
All right, so we could do that then. This would be the program opens July 1. The deadline can be anytime in January then, because we've got to go all the way up until, we can't give them the check until after July 1 the following year.
Right.
Right. So you want to say the fiscal years, you wanted to say fiscal year, the annual town meeting, and then payments would be after the beginning of the fiscal year.
Okay.
I mean, it seems like a really early period to ask for them to apply, but, it gives you guys some leeway before budget season kicks in.
Yeah. Because they're going to know what they're going to do with the money. I mean, and that makes it easy to have an
I
interview.
mean, they're gonna get their money, even if you didn't have this grant program, they weren't gonna get their money till fiscal 20, so they're used to this cycle.
Okay. So the deadline's July 1, January 15th, the deadline. The funds will be available July 1, the next fiscal year. We don't have to get involved in town meeting stuff.
So there's no article at town meeting?
No. This is an
Make an
FYI at
announcement. Like you
town
said, you
meeting.
make
It's
an
an
announcement.
announcement.
Just make an
Annual,
announcement.
You would need an article at town meeting, because you'll need to raise and appropriate the funds. I mean, I
The
don't know.
following year.
Right.
But that would have nothing to do with the current grant award would just be an FYI, just so you guys know what we did with the money last year.
All right, so say April of next year.
We would be talking about 2021.
Right, so you'd be looking for the 25,000 for 2021 to replenish the grant program.
Well, and I guess I'm getting hung up on something, but it's just every year you have an article.
Right,
Okay.
right.
All I'm good.
And actually, next year, we may not need, if we have leftover funds, then, if we still have $10,000 sitting there, then we're not gonna ask for 25, we're gonna ask for 15. So we can keep that,
Well, and that's why if you knew who you were going to award early, that would help the budget process,
Right.
because right now, what we do when we're doing our revenue forecast is we bank on 25,000 because we have no clue what we're gonna get for
Right.
citizens petitions, but if you knew by January, that would allow us to change the number, so we're not raising and appropriating more than we need to. Because then, like, say you have budget shortfalls in other places, you could
Sure.
use those funds someplace else.
all right, so give me the dates, everybody. What do you wanna do? We okay with July 1, the deadline January 31st? With the actual award of the funds being the following fiscal year, which would be July 1st of the following year.
So you'll make your final decision when? Because the deadline is January 31st, but when would you make your final decision?
Before town meeting.
Before town meeting.
Well, we still want to be able to work with the budgets, but we'll know what's come in. So if the deadline's January 31st, technically the February meeting will know how much has been asked for. So we'll have a budget amount at that point,
Yeah.
unless it's obvious that we're going to decline something, and I don't see that being the case if it's the same ones over and over and over again.
You could also, if I could, you could also cause the deadline to be earlier, like in November 30th or December 31st. That way you'll know a lot more before the budgeting process really gets underway. And you're not chewing up an evening in February where you're interviewing, potential folks, and I have no disrespect, but it's a $5,000 out of a $26 million budget. I would rather you maybe focus on that in the non-budget season, so November 30th, because, if you give them 4 months, that's 5 months, right? July, August, September,
Yeah,
October,
yeah.
November.
I like the
I think
November
that's
part.
like more than enough time, and that way you could schedule things in December
Yeah.
before the holidays, get away from that. That's my thought.
And it's like you giving money away for Christmas.
Yeah.
Christmas present.
The amount is always going to be the same, though, right, each year?
Well, you don't know that, but
The 25,000 be the maximum.
Right. So the most you're gonna do is give out $5,000.
Right.
So then you're gonna have, but you could have more interviews because you could have more applicants, and then you have to
Have to
decide.
Drop
decide.
the money down.
Right.
Yeah, it's not necessarily that we have to give.
But I like it earlier, that way it doesn't interfere with,
what's the deadline for the warrant articles now? Don't we
I mean,
clo-
it's pretty early, but the thing is, it's a moving document, and so like if, we would have a placeholder for the 25,000,
Yeah.
but then, as we get closer and closer to the time, you could change the amounts,
But they usually come in early.
They do, but I mean, again, they'll probably, because what usually happens is a lot of them are placeholders initially, just to make sure we have, everything in place, that we've got everything covered, but then they're still moving up until late.
Well, I'm trying to think, the last one, this all started back in November, and that was the last warrant article, the last article that came in, the money article that came in was Shane Gives Thanks, and that was around the middle of November.
traditionally, historically, I should say, most petition articles are usually the last things to come in.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
we're already into the whole budgeting process and zoning changes and everything else like that is already, kind of in the system.
Yeah, because we had our budgets already set before we knew what the citizens petition articles were gonna be.
Why not do October 31st?
You could.
Make a motion to open the grant program July 1, beginning of the fiscal year, and closing on October 31st.
I second.
Motion made and seconded to open it on July 1 and close it October 31st. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, so now we need a motion on when we're actually gonna, well, and now we're gonna need something in here about when the check will get cut, so that would be the following fiscal year, so beginning July 1, the following fiscal year.
My thoughts would be as soon as the start of the fiscal year, you can put a request in and.
So are they still going to have to submit an invoice? I mean,
Not if we've done the grant.
Although from accounting standpoint, I need something.
You need an invoice to pay
Yeah.
off of,
Yeah.
Is the application's not sufficient enough?
Because there's gonna
Well,
be
you need, like, a
paperwork with it.
P2.
Yeah, because I mean, yeah, you definitely need like the address that it's going to.
Well, there would be paperwork with it, and there'd be an address and tax numbers and everything else on the app.
Accountants love
Maybe
invoices.
Huh?
Yeah, they
Accountants
want-
like invoices, just because,
W-9,
Yeah.
if they don't already have one file and they
Yeah.
want an invoice. We could ask for that to be part of this.
We put that in the requirement for
List
the
of
documents. Okay.
Maybe we give them
But
like
so
a
you would only,
blanket.
you wouldn't want it, okay, so you wouldn't want it part of the application, because it would only be for those that you've awarded it
Awarded
to.
to, yeah.
So you'd only want it once they received a letter from the finance committee that they are going to get it, then as a requirement. It's sort of like the legal receipt and release, you're gonna get it, but you gotta acknowledge that you're gonna get it. So that would be when you'd wanna get the invoice.
We could put that in this tool number 4, a memorandum of agreement. So that could be in the requirements of how we put that together. I'm sorry, I'm double-sided printed on
Yep,
some of
no,
this, Steve, just because it saves
Yep.
paper.
Yep, you could just add another bullet.
Just add another
And we'll
bullet
give
to
the
it that it's,
GOCGP and invoice.
yeah,
What if,
yeah.
what if we had like a blank template of an invoice and as we approve them, we fill it out?
They might have their own,
They have their own.
they might have their own type of an invoice
Plus,
that,
I'd rather they filled it out.
yeah.
But what if- I'm
Accountants
just
like
thinking,
that,
what if-
Yeah, yeah.
I know, but what if they fill out an invoice and send it higher than we approved? Who's
but
gonna
because,
stop
because
it?
that.
Gotta
I
come
mean,
back to us.
Okay.
Yeah. Plus,
Whatever they send in is gonna come through us, and she's never gonna pay anything till it doesn't come back through the
plus some
finance committee.
invoices are tied to their revenue
sure you get your
system, so
information.
they're gonna wanna be able to track the bill going out and then the money coming in.
Yeah.
so
Well, because
that's-
one way or the other, like, so when I get that invoice, because again, like, I'll know that it's there, but just, the requirements should be consistent. It should either have the signatures of the finance committee, or I would need like the minutes showing that the grant was approved, like one or the other, something to substantiate that we're not just paying something without the proper authorization.
If there are more than 5 applicants, what are we using to determine?
Well, the limit is $5,000 per applicant with a $25,000 cap on the program. So if we get 6 applicants in for $5,000 apiece, now that's what this whole committee is here for. It's here to decide who's, is there going to be a way we can get some to take less, or is there going to be a way we have to say no to somebody because we've exceeded our limit? And there's still nothing to stop them from getting their warrant, getting the application out, the warrant, and getting 10 signatures, and off we go.
Well, I mean, that's, I think, education at town meeting too, and explaining that one of these articles has a vetting system and then the other one does not.
That's right.
And if you don't approve it at town meeting either, or support it,
What's the criteria?
We don't have a criteria for it.
I think you could make, my observation would be that if you get 6 applicants, you have 25,000, the most you can give is 5,000, you could give 4,000 to each one of them and say, and if you're looking for more, then they can do a petition article. That's up to them. Because the good news is, the decision is gonna be made in November, which gives them time to decide whether or not they wanna do a petition. And then as part of town meeting, conversation can be that, well, they also received this much in grants from the FinCom, and therefore, that's why they're not asking for much, because they only got this much and they wanted more, so. Because they may want 10, and we can't give them 10. So they may want to go back to town meeting and petition for 6, in that case.
And they could petition for any amount.
Sure
They can petition, well, that's right, they don't have to,
They can petition town
They can
meeting for
ignore the fact that
$100,000.
they got
If town meeting
$4,000.
approves it,
Yeah.
right, right.
We can't stop that. We're not trying to. We're just trying to get some control to it.
Yeah.
Town meeting would be made aware of the fact, like Steve just said, that, we vetted these people here, and now this one, we didn't have any money left for this applicant, so this is a petition article, but it's not being vetted, so this is up to you guys. What do you want to do?
well, also, I mean, if if you're going through the budget process, we're drawing up a budget on a revenue forecast saying this is how much we have. If they were to put, I don't know how that would happen for a citizen's petition, because like if someone questions an article at town meeting and they want to increase it, they have to cite a funding source, and I'm not sure that they would have to do the same thing.
No, I'm not saying they're gonna do it at town meeting,
Yeah.
they'll set a permission, send in a petition, and the Board of Selectmen would review it.
I know,
for
but
a
do,
dollar amount.
but let's say you guys have a $25,000 program, then we still have people, going through the citizens petition. I mean, is the town obligated to put that into the budget?
They're obligated to have
With
it
the 10
presented at
petition.
town meeting. To the Board of Selectmen, it's up to the Board of Selectmen whether or not they put it on the warrant.
Yeah.
But has that ever happened?
Not that I'm aware of.
I don't
I
recall it
mean,
either.
in 30,
I think-
I would doubt it very much. Somebody comes along and says,
We've had some
Well,
$25,000 years.
I only got 4,000, but I want 5.
No,
so-
it was just
it?
it was like 2 years ago, one of the citizens petitions was held and tried to be increased. Someone tried to increase it
on town meeting floor.
on town meeting floor.
Yes,
Yeah.
I don't disagree. That didn't work, though.
No,
Oh, but not for the grant.
no.
No, I don't see that.
This is gonna obviously be a process.
Work in
This is the first year at this. That's why I don't wanna overcomplicate it now, because I know we're gonna have to grow a little bit with this. There's gonna be things that we didn't foresee, and, I don't wanna,
No.
Potential
The information,
to do that.
if 6, 7 people
No, I don't think so.
fill this out, and that's all we're asking for.
Do that next year.
That's all we get to go by unless someone knows something different.
well, no, they're coming in for an interview. We're not just gonna be reviewing a piece of paper.
Right.
There's gonna be a representative coming in to give a explanation of, the who's, the what's, the when's, the where's, the why's, and, I mean, we're not gonna put them with bright lights in a chair in a room, but we're gonna ask them, what are you doing with the money?
Right.
And pretty much the ones that have gotten it before through a petition article, we have a really good idea of where it's going. Like, it's pretty obvious that, and I said this at town meeting, Shane Gives Thanks isn't gonna go on vacation. You know what they're doing with the money. So, but we'd like it on the record, exactly what they say they're gonna be doing with the money. Then we have the application and we have their interview and everything's above board, so the town all knows. And then they're gonna come back, that's the other thing, that's the other flip side of this coin, is we're gonna ask them to come back, and if they have an application going for the following year, then we're gonna ask them to also tell us what you did with the money we gave you last year. Because that's where we don't want, that was the whole bottom line with the anti-aid amendment. They don't have to come in here and give us addresses and names and people and stuff like that as to who benefited from the program, but we need some kind of something in writing from them saying, you gave us $5,000 and we serviced 2,200 residents, 400 residents, 212 residents, however it works out. We spent all the money in Carver, we spent 80% of the money in Carver, just so that this whole thing is to make everybody. This whole thing's all about transparency, so we all know where this is going. These charitable organizations are wonderful, and
We know if there's 6 or 7 people come in, the most they can do is 25,000. That's what we're limiting it to.
that's the limit of the program.
5,000 divided by however many. If they fill in all this out, and they come in and talk, chances are, okay, fine, but if they want more, they're gonna have to petition.
Right.
And they can do that, and,
Yeah.
yeah.
Of course they can.
And then we can just,
We could
what do we do at
suggest,
that point? We're gonna get to
well,
talk at town
if
meeting?
they do a
say we only-
petition, like Steve said, the selectmen have to review it.
Yep.
And decide whether they want to even put it on the warrant. Obviously, that becomes one of the joint meetings that the Finance Committee will have with the Board of Selectmen, where we'll explain what we're doing, and we'll explain that this is either over and above what they had originally requested in the grant, or this was over the $25,000 limit, and we were unable to accommodate it, but this goes to before town meeting in a petition with no oversight from us.
Seems hard to believe that in, the small community, that people aren't gonna know.
Yeah, but even when, they know from the petition articles now, and we've only, the most we've ever really had is, we've gone to 25,000, but we've only had 5 applicants. That was the biggest number, I think.
2 of them this year weren't even at 5,000. One
Right.
was 4, one was 3.
And then YPAC withdrew.
But yes,
2 years ago, it was down to 11,000 or 13,000 was all that was requested.
yeah.
So it's not like, we're not gonna be up again, I don't think we're gonna get to the limit every single year.
All right, if there are fewer than 5, can they,
No, it's a
$5 is a
$5,000
limit.
limit.
so it's 15, there's 10 left, that stays
That's right.
in,
And the 10 stays, and if
stays
we,
in that
that's
pot.
right. And if we want to get it replenished next year, then the 10 stays, and we ask for 15 more instead of 25 more to bring the accounting line back to the 25,000.
Is it going to be established as a revolving
No, I
fund?
think what it would probably be treated as is an article, like article balances don't close out.
So it's basically, if you don't use it, it then would be accumulated towards free cash.
So let's
And
put
then you
it-
go back again.
Let's put it this way, like, so if, with the budget lines always close out at the end of the year, close to free cash. But an article, like, let's say the police department has an article to buy a new cruiser, they may, towards the end, and so that's in April, by June 30th, they may not have that cruiser in place yet, so that article carries over. So articles carry over from year to year, and that's how I would treat this. Sometimes the auditors can come in and say that shouldn't be treated that way, so I'm gonna say that it should be fine,
Right, so
but
then.
it could be challenged.
So then you might go and reference, in the next subsequent town meeting, you would go and say, in article so-and-so
Yeah,
at this town meeting,
replenish
this much
this
was
article.
voted, therefore, okay.
Or we could do it the other way, it doesn't matter. We could sit back and say, we only had $15,000 in grants this year, the other 10,000 went back into free cash, now we're asking for you to replenish to 25,000 again.
Yeah, either way.
So at least now there's a
It's
paper
cleaner.
trail.
It's clean from your perspective.
Yeah.
Well, however Meg wants to do it, she's the boss with us.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, either way works, I think.
I think it'd be cleaner.
I do too.
to move it to free cash, or to?
Yeah, we just get counted as part of free cash because it wasn't used, therefore you.
Yeah, it comes out, goes in, and comes out.
Yeah.
With a 25.
You're right, it is cleaner.
And then Meg doesn't get in trouble from the
Consistent with the way
auditors
the other
with,
departments run.
somebody breathing down her throat saying she didn't dot an I properly, and she gets wiggy over that stuff anyway.
I what?
You get a little wiggy over that stuff anyway.
It's my job.
Should
All
there be something in these guidelines on the grant program that are the grants that have been approved will be awarded at the first selectmen's meeting after January, or July 1st, fiscal year starts?
At the selectmen's meeting?
I would make a big show of it and sit back and have the
thought we were gonna
do
selectmen
that
annual-
Town meeting.
Well, we're not gonna give the check out at the annual town meeting. We're gonna make the announcement that this is what we're
At the
doing.
one, but then have, because you got the TV, you got everything here, and let's make it a grand gesture on the town, and here you go, and let the selectmen run
You
through
wanna
that.
give them credit for?
We could have Alan,
No,
be like publishers.
I'd be more,
Big check, right?
be much, yeah, we get one of them big checks, like when you win the lottery.
Just keep putting the name out, putting it on.
How is it normally done? It's just a town meeting, and then it's just, everything happens behind the
Yeah.
Yeah, the invoice and
scenes?
they get a small check.
We
You probably have to bring that to the select board and see what their
What they would, yeah,
appetite is for that.
Let's just,
One of the things that morph, it'll.
yeah, that'll morph in. Let's just do the fact that, the application procedure and then the funds will be awarded at the first meeting. Leave it in for finance committee at this time. I think the first finance committee meeting, we can even mail it. The funds would be mailed at after July 1st, the fiscal year, however you
I
find
know,
some
I got a
wording
better
for that.
solution. Treat it like Publishers Clearinghouse. Balloons,
Go knock on the door.
TV
I'm
cameras.
still
the
waiting
whole
for that guy to come knocking.
Right.
We'll get Franny to bring the camera over his shoulder. He can
There you
follow
go.
us around.
7,000 a week for life.
Yeah, good. You know who wins that? Nobody.
I saw her once.
I don't believe it. So July 1st, so we're looking at the next fiscal year. We're good with that?
Yes.
When it opens.
Now, there was another thing that Patrick had asked, in the project goals section of the application. He says he's a fan of the SMART goal format where goals are written to include specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time. I think that's asking a little bit too much. for like a Shane Gives Thanks or a,
what if we had a scoring sheet, not now, but maybe in the future at some time, and those are the things that we score on,
so we would use that as a worksheet.
as a worksheet for us,
I like
to
that,
decide who gets what.
because I'm not sure that everybody that's applying knows what that is.
Exactly, but,
So to ask them to fill it out,
but we could, on our scoring sheet, to make sure that it's fair across the board, say, okay, did they meet the specific goals or the measurable goals, whatever, for our town? And then each one will get a score.
you could even use that on the follow-up. And score the follow-up for what you do with the money. So that could be part of that. So why don't we leave it off of the application, but we'll incorporate the SMART goals into the vetting process.
Exactly. I mean, that's what
I mean, I think that that's the best, then you can't be accused of, picking one organization over another
yeah.
for no reason or grounds, without grounds or
I've sat
something.
on panels before, and that's what we've done. We've had like maybe 6 pillars that you had to meet. And we would rate you on how you met those pillars.
Yeah.
So we could use the SMART as our first to meet.
Okay.
And it's just.
There's no way.
That's a good idea.
There's no way of verifying even their answers, right, unless you hear something different, right?
Yeah, we're not going out with the camera.
All right, so we'll use the SMART plan for the vetting.
Thinking of a
Um,
Boston Strong event that was.
This is just an observation, I'm sorry. He would separate into 3 different topics the template layout, so it looks like 3 different documents. Overview of the grant, instructions template, and an MOA. I think the only reason it's all squished together is I was trying to save some paper. We can certainly stretch it out, and it's not gonna be printed on both sides, and it would look different when it's all done. I'm just trying to get the content of what's in it, and then we can, run around the table with where everything should go for layout. I don't even know if we need to have the opinion of town council. I just threw it in there because this was actually what was handed out to some people before town meeting, so that I wanted that opinion kept in there. Doesn't need to still be in there. I added the email into the contact info, just an observation. We note the action plan is part of an approval process, but we do not specifically call out an action plan in the application instructions. We may want to tweak the application to a header of project goals action plan. Well, we have it in the following criteria.
There was an action plan.
Significance, likelihood of success, action plan. And I don't want to complicate this. I don't want them to have to go get a lawyer to make the application out.
Yeah.
It's looking more like a for-profit business.
That's it, I just don't want it to turn into that. And I did move the abbreviation up, so that takes care of that. Anything else on this application?
I think I'm.
Can I go to the second paragraph under introduction?
Yes.
The first line, taxpayer should be taxpayer, one word.
With an E,
What's that?
with an E too.
Yes, with an E, yes, sorry. That was the other part of it. I thought my Boston accent, payer, might have caught the difference, but
I don't know why that broke it up into 2. I didn't do that on purpose.
spell check gets you every time.
I'm telling, you know what I had a problem with tonight? I couldn't get the word email to go up under the contact person. I don't know how I got that the way that is.
Yeah, I know how that happens. Like sometimes if you put a space in, you can't get rid of that
I
space.
can't get rid of the space. I backspaced and it ended up beside the contact person.
Might be in your paragraph, you might have an
I tried
extra-
changing it to narrow, and I still couldn't make it do it.
You might have a built-in return or.
I think where the problem came in is I think I stole some of this information off the web and it was cut and paste.
You mean you procured it? is
Yeah,
that what
well,
you're saying?
it wasn't, it wasn't like I stole it. It was, That's where I got it. You think I come up with all these words? That's probably where taxpayer came from, too.
Right.
Actually, I think it is, because I did a cut and paste, and I deleted some words and added town of Carver, and I didn't print this from scratch.
That doesn't explain the taxpayer part
I
though.
don't think you can find that.
It might have been in reference to something else, and I just,
That
didn't
might have
pick
been
up
something
on
from
it.
the 1700s, right?
I don't know.
For out thou taxpayer.
they are.
All right, anybody else?
Something to do with King George, I think.
We're good on the application instructions, 501c3, tax ID, organization name, address, phone number, title for the project, and contact person, email. The goal, I didn't leave a lot of room here because, you know, we can obviously leave some space for it, or we can include it on a separate piece of paper, or whatever, what's their goal. Just the project goal, significance, and the budget. Please provide your annual operating budget. We do not need detail, so I don't want them to give me a tax return. I just want to know what's your total budget. You know, if you're taking in $16 million for 3 towns, maybe you don't need our $5,000 quite so much.
The only thing about the wording, we do not need detail, means you get one line, here's my budget, one line.
Yeah, you don't
Want to
have
say like
expenses or-
summary detail, maybe something?
Well, give me some wording for it. This is, you know, a cut and paste thing, so except for that we do not need detail.
Budgeted,
Please provide an annual summary operating budget.
An annual
yeah, that's a good idea.
summary. Okay, so I'll take out that we do not need
You
detail.
don't want 30 lines, but like 6 or 10 would
Okay,
be
so
good.
please provide your annual summary operating budget,
Yeah.
or your annual operating budget summary.
Sure. See the way it works.
And the towns you now provide assistance to. I think that's important.
Yep.
Anything in the memorandum we don't like? Needed to put a date in there. On that first line, I'll give them a report of how the project went and what was accomplished no later than. I don't know if I'd use the word project either. I think I'd probably use how the funding was spent no
Yeah, but-
later than.
You're not gonna ask for financials?
What do you mean?
We were gonna get a summary operating budget.
The budget, so you're not gonna ask for like their, like, balance sheet or?
You think some of these smaller operations are gonna have a balance sheet?
They
I
might,
hope so.
QuickBooks?
But I mean, I guess my question is, we can ask for them, but are we of the
Obligated to?
position to assess?
Yeah.
Or are we gonna have to defer to someone with an accounting background?
Oh,
to-
Beth is.
Yeah, but I mean, like, just from a quick overview, you can kind of see like how their operations are going and see like,
Yeah, I know, but are you gonna make, is you gonna ask the finance committee to make a judgment as to their financial worthiness?
no, I don't even think it's for that. I think it's just, it could provide some insight into the organization maybe, or it could, like, there could be red flags there.
Do you think the South Shore Community Action is gonna give us that information?
I think they probably do.
Probably it might be 30 pages.
But on the other hand, you may, if you're asking for it up front, then you might cause people not to apply. So that's the other side of it, you know.
We should leave that open-ended for now, just to see how this goes.
They can always amend it.
That's what I mean. I think this is gonna become a document in the works anyway.
I mean, I would hope that the operating budget is pretty close to the financials,
Yeah.
the actuals.
But would their revenue tell you anything though too?
Yeah, I mean, you could. But I would assume we're gonna get that from
The
the
summary.
summary operating budget. It's gotta be somewhere.
I mean, the,
And there's still an interview.
I mean, the budget, I would think of that as being like, they're just their budget, like their expenses, not the revenue side necessarily, but.
But they may not want their budget talked about on a recorded session for a $5,000 grant. They may not want that, you know, they may not want it out there. Not that I don't know
I mean,
why
to
they
me, the
wouldn't.
more important thing here is on the basis of why they're asking for the grant, is that they're supporting Carver residents. So to me, more importantly would be, how many Carver residents have you served? What's the amount of money that you
Right.
expended on, you know, Carver residents? Again, trying to focus it on, you know, what, rather than the whole, try to get to the parts, you know, to me. So tell us what you're gonna do with the new money
Right.
that you're gonna get, you know, for, and if they say, we're gonna continue programs, or we're gonna introduce something new, or, you know, at least that, to me, is more beneficial than a balance sheet,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Because it's more meaningful, you know.
And
And I mean,
honestly-
the balance sheet less so, the revenues though.
But do we
Well-
really care that they spent, you know, $25,000 in Rochester? Does that affect us as long as they didn't take some of our grant money and spend it over there? Which is why we're not requiring 100%. We tried to be fair about that.
Right.
Plus, if they're an organization that gets them like $500,000
Right.
of revenue and spends it amongst various towns.
Yeah, but
do
there's
we
no
care?
auditing of that, so that's kind of a good faith
Yeah.
statement
well,
on
yeah.
our part and theirs.
This is a lot more information than we ever would have gotten off a petition.
That's true.
We just want to see that they got $5,000 instead of 5% were spent on taxpayers
Yeah.
for a good cause.
Yeah, I mean, that's true, because 5,000 really isn't
Right.
such a.
I mean, we've gone to town meetings before, you know, we've had certain members of town meeting who've probed, you know, what these organizations have provided to Carver residents. So this way here, it's a little less intrusive, I guess, because it's not in front of all of town meeting, it's just in front of the FinCom. So I think you'll have a better, a more candid, because I always feel badly that the petition articles are near the end, and we have people who come for the entire meeting, only to have to get up when everybody's, you know, bleary-eyed at midnight and say why they're here for their $10,000. You know, it's kind of like, you know, having to sing for your supper. You know, it's-
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
you know, so this is a little less of a less of an issue, you know. You're
And
gonna-
frankly, I think if they're willing to provide all of this information and take the time to make this application out, I think that's gonna weed out any of the shadier ones, if there were ever such a thing anyway. I mean, you're not gonna go through all of this for, and I don't mean it to demean it, but you're not gonna go through all of this for $2,500 or $5,000 if it's not gonna be done properly. And my expectation would be there's gonna be familiar organizations that are coming to it. I don't think we're gonna find, you know, Balloon USA from, you know, Ottawa gonna come in because they're gonna provide balloons for the 4th of July. You know, it's not gonna be something we've never heard of before.
All right, so back to this, we're looking for a date.
Yeah, let's do it, and I wanna change that wording. We only take the word project out, and let's use funding. Is that a better word? Anybody?
Number 4?
Yeah, no, I will give, yes, number 4, the memorandum, the first bullet.
Yep.
I will give the project report of how the funding went, how the funding was spent. Give me some wording.
Funds were allocated.
I like that. So a report of how the funds were allocated, take out the word went, and what was accomplished. We can leave that in there.
Yeah.
Sure.
No later than, give me a date.
July 31.
What was that?
July 31.
Did we need this to say tool for,
Say again?
right here? It
No,
says
we're going to
tool
take,
for.
no, that's, again, this is the cut and paste
Oh,
thing.
yeah, no, I know.
I will spend the money I get only on things I said I would in my proposal. This was taken right off of something I obviously picked up. Right off of something I said I would in my proposal. If I need to make changes, I will contact and I added the TOCGP first. I think I like something, I like that simple wording in there because I don't want them to come back and say, we had planned on doing X for the town and changed our mind and decided to do Y, and then we shared that with Plimpton. So you didn't get your 75%. If they come in and say, this is what we're gonna do with the money, then that's what I want them to follow through with. What are your thoughts?
Agree.
Of course, when you, under this memorandum, we keep saying I.
Yeah,
Does each organization have only one person that can spend this money?
No.
agree with that.
And they do that?
We're doing the ayes
Different
because,
pronoun.
It
Yeah.
should be we,
Yeah.
I think. It-
no, it actually shouldn't, because the last bullet is it talks about, if I am part of an organization, then my signature below indicates that I'm the one who has the right to enter into this contract. So we put the I person on the hook. So we don't get the janitor in here signing the agreement. We want a principal of the organization, and they're gonna sign, print their name and title, and they're actually guaranteeing this document for their group. So it doesn't get into the we. The I's are for the individual signing.
It's accountability, too. You
It's
can't-
accountability. You follow me?
Well, yeah, I understand what you're saying. I'm just thinking that if it's we, then we hold and they don't uphold this, then we hold that whole organization, not just a person. I'm not sure a person, if that would stand up in anything.
Well, I think we still would hold the whole organization because they're signing for the organization. Am I wrong?
The way this is written is we're only gonna hold I.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that.
In that last.
I can
statement.
certainly change it to we.
No, I'm just, this is
What do you
my
think?
thought process, whether or not it's working or not.
No, I thought it was.
Legalities, I'm not really not,
Steve,
I'm not sure.
what are your thoughts?
Well, the grant applicant is the organization as opposed to an individual. So to refer to the I, kind of seems to, it would imply individual. So I think what might have to put in on each one of these is on behalf of organization, blank. And that way, instead of I, now you cover yourself because they're representing the organization, they're representing the 501c3. So if you put on behalf in front of each one instead of I think you're covered because, and we probably shouldn't say it, instead of just saying, please sign here, date, print name, title, and we should have organization also underneath it, again, restating.
So it's, yeah.
Right,
it's
on the memorandum of agreement, nowhere in the sample is there a reference to an organizational name.
Right.
So I think if you do it that way, I think you're
I agree with
legally covered.
doing that. And
All right,
the
so you
other-
want to use on behalf of the organization?
Well, the organization is gonna be here, but each one of these bullets should
Yep.
say on behalf of,
Of,
and leave a space, for the organization name and, or you can say on behalf of the organization
How about on behalf?
named below.
I was going to say, how about on behalf of the applicant?
Well, I think I think you just say organization, because you've said it in multiple times
Uh-huh.
in here, so I think you're okay with that,
Or we just leave the word organization?
Yeah, I just leave, but I would reference the organization that's gonna be in the bottom line here,
Yeah, under
you know,
print name.
like under the name,
Okay.
yeah. Because then you're covered, I think. Could always have the lawyers look at it.
Yeah, usually, right, you have like
It will be
organization, the
January.
organization address and telephone number.
Okay, so it's going to be sign here, date, print name, title, and name of the organization?
Mm-hmm.
You want to put that back in there, too?
I put address and telephone number too.
And I do, this is a more general question, trying to see if I remember what we
But we're over
decided
here.
at town meeting, but did we decide not to have any references to not only, to refer to formerly the selectmen as the select board? Did we also eliminate any references to man in the word chair? Did we now?
We did-
are
we
going
actually
to
did.
go on chairs
We didn't.
Chairperson?
as a person, chair?
I can take out the man and just leave the committee chair.
Like I'm
What
sure,
does it say? What does it
it's on the
say?
second bullet.
It is.
I mean, it's first bullet on the last page.
Not now, it isn't.
Chairperson. Yeah,
Well, I
No,
think you just.
so
you just
Carver
say
Select
chair.
Board
Think
Chair.
If you just say chair, then you're
That's
fine. You don't have to say person. It presumes that it's non-animal or some kind of human.
All right, so Carver Select Board Chair, Finance Committee Chair, Carver Town Administrator.
Yep.
All right, on behalf of the organization, I agree with you, because the MOA is going to be on its own piece of paper.
Yeah,
So we're going to need to have,
I'm just trying to think, when I sign stuff, I always have to write the organization name, address, telephone number.
okay.
I have one question at the last bullet. If I am part of this organization, I'd take if out of there. It's better be part of the organization, whoever signed for it, so I wouldn't,
We're hoping.
yeah.
I think they put that there in case you hire an outside grant writer.
Mm.
Some companies hire grant writers that would fill this out for you on behalf, so it's probably wherever you.
I'm going to stay with on behalf of and take the if I am part of.
No, they could be the ones filling it out for you.
Yeah, if they fill it out, but on here, it's saying, I am the one who has the right to enter into contracts. If it's a grant writer, he's not gonna enter into a contract with anybody, he's just writing the paper and giving it to the organization.
I'm just going to take,
Take it out.
Take
I'm
it,
going to leave on behalf of the organization, then my signature will indicate I'm the one who has the right to,
Right.
blah, blah, blah. So that's going to get the on behalf of. And do you want to leave, we taking out the opinion, or we leaving it in?
As part of the agreement?
Well, I was going to leave it in as part of the application. I can move it elsewhere or just remove
I don't think
it.
it's pertinent to include it in there.
So just take it out.
I mean, it's good information, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's, town paid for it,
Okay,
the advice of council.
okay. So I think we're there with this. We need a motion. I'll fix this and we'll completely finalize it at the next.
Last,
Are we taking that out?
the opinion.
Yes, the opinion's coming right out. It'll be removed. I will break these bullet points up, these topics up into their own pages. There will be room to put in the organization name and address and phone and email at the signature line. I think we've got everything else we needed. July 31st. We're there. Maybe, yes, no?
Anything about Nino and Vinnie showing up at the door if they don't abide?
We'll send you. And you're a lot tougher than Nino and Vinnie.
Baseball bench?
There you go.
General discussion and thoughts from the May 9th meeting, Townwide Sustainability Study, first batch of data requests, committee voting procedures with the Board of Selectmen and school committee members. Let me just give you the quick update. I went to the school committee's meeting and I was reminded 42 times that they're a sovereign board. And
I did not know that.
Huh? Yeah, I know that. We were reminded. And then they seem to get really hung up on the word vote, because we're going to have a potentially full board, and they're going to have, well, they decided on 2 representatives, but would have 1 vote. So they got really hung up on the vote, and it's really not, we're not going to become a voting board as in, we can't dictate policy.
No.
This is really nothing more than going to be an overgrown roundtable. So the vote was going to be, and I made light of it, the vote would be, what do we want to take up first? Well, let's go study the police budget. All those in favor? So we can remove the word voting completely out of the whole process, and that's what I ended up saying to the school committee, that we don't even need to do that.
I'm not sure if I agree with that, because first of all study committees that we've had, I can't even begin to tell you how many study committees, and I've been on quite a few of them in the last few years. All the study committees have had voting thing, because you can't put anything forward to the Board of Selectmen, Select Board, without having a vote of your committee.
Well, not yet, they're not. They didn't get approved by the state.
You have to have some authority to say, we're putting this forward, and you have to have consensus, because otherwise you're not going to be able to present anything. So to whether or not you have, 1 vote, 2 vote, whatever it is, it's really more an advisory committee that you have. You're providing, like we did the town building study committee, or when I was on the OPEB funding committee, the unfunded liabilities. It was always about, we had to get consensus as a group before we could present anything else. And I think that's what the important thing is. You're always going to have disagreement. Bless you. You're always going to have disagreement amongst members. It's rare that, people aren't coming from different perspectives. But to not have any vote, and I think that's the important thing. If the school committee wants 2, then I think you got to say, well, the select board needs to have 2. I mean,
The select board has. Mark, that was my next part of this. Mark Townsend and Alan Dunham. I do not know, the school committee did not vote that night. They voted to participate. They voted to have Brad Brothers provide financial information if we need it. They voted to have 2 members from the school committee with 1 vote. That was the bottom line after we hashed everything around. There was a comment made that if they're going to have just 1 vote, then the finance committee, regardless of how many people, tonight there's 6, if there was 11, that they also should only have 1 vote, so that it wouldn't be viewed as ganging up on them.
see, well,
we'd all have to
I would have
take a
loved to go
vote
to a school
decide
committee
out what-
meeting and just say, look, there's an advisory.
I did that.
Study committee.
I did that.
This is not a matter of anybody ganging up.
I was 20 minutes in front of the camera.
I mean,
They want it to be, and then before they vote, they want to go back to their own committee and get permission to place the vote.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
So I said, you know what, this isn't, I don't want to make a 2-year lifelong study out of this.
I mean, when, Pat will remember this fondly. When we had the town building study committee, we had literally 6 months from the time we started till the time we had to deliver the April 11th, 2011 town meeting decision. Because the schools were, we were changing tires at 35,000 feet on the plane that was moving with the MSBA. We had no choice. And so I think that's the same approach you need to take care. You need to come up with a financially sustainable way for the town, and you need to come up with the best thing, and it's purely advisory. So it doesn't matter how many votes you have, it's whatever comes out of the committee or the subcommittee, and whatever is presented to the select board and to the school committee. And they then independently have to decide how they want to receive it. So they can take their votes, all of their votes, at that time to say thumbs up, thumbs down. Same with the select board. And, so however, this could be made up of 50 residents if you wanted to, but is that going to get anything done?
Right.
I think what you're looking for is to have the input of the people who have the financial knowledge of the town, some more than others. But the point is that you're taking that collective thought and coming up with a collective answer. Whether or not it's accepted or not is going to show up at the school committee, the select board, and ultimately town meeting.
That's right.
That's my opinion.
I couldn't agree more. And we went back and forth and back and forth, and like, I'm just giving you the bottom line. This was the vote of the school committee to put 2 members on, 1 vote. Brad Brothers will provide the documentation that we should need. It's still a public meeting. I made that very clear that anybody else on the school committee could certainly come and sit and join, and, and the selectmen did it the other night the same way. They voted to be involved in this. They voted to put 2 people on it. Mark Townsend volunteered and Alan Dunham volunteered.
Maybe I should have asked this earlier before, but when I spoke with Michael, my understanding was that this was the full finance committee, whatever existed at the time, which wasn't many, and the full finance committee with subcommittees of other committee members.
Yeah, and then-
And that was going to be the collective.
That was. And then what happened was we got effectively 4 or 5 new members. So I did not want to create a subcommittee that excluded anyone. So we decided to turn it into the full board. The only thing that I'm doing battle with is I would prefer to have, and let me know what everybody thinks about this, but I was thinking 2 quick meetings, perhaps a month, 1 to deal with whatever comes before the finance committee, which could very well be nothing, and then another meeting that I would like to have recorded, we'll have minutes taken, but it'll be a very informal, it'll still be a publicly posted meeting, but it's going to be more of a discussion study committee with this that'll be a little bit more relaxed. My attitude is the more in this, the merrier. We've got new members that have kids that, the entire town budget affects. We have people with tremendous amount of experience going back, and what's been tried and done in the past. We have Pat, who knows what's going on with the schools, not that you don't by any means, but the 2 geniuses on the board here as far as how that goes with some history. John Carter is unfortunately going to be enjoying retirement, but it's still a public meeting, so you're more than welcome to come and visit.
We've already set the dates.
Yeah, I'm sure.
As long as you sit out
You
there.
watch it on television.
So that was my thing, and I had actually wanted, and I'll throw this out there also, I wanted someone from planning. Because I thought planning was the income side of the statement, is what's in the pipeline, what's coming, what are the projects, what do you think?
You would like to think that, but I think the problem that we've had in the past is that we've taken information from planning and made decisions off of that have not come to fruition. So, I'll speak like an accountant. So my real jobs have been underwriting, financial underwriting for 30 years. And I always break down our financial brains into the three pieces. We have our accountants, we have our underwriters, and we have our actuaries. That's what insurance companies do. So the accountants do a great job at counting things that really happen. That's their primary job. Make sure the ticks and the tax, make sure the debits equal the credits, make sure everything is right. Actuaries do a great job looking back and trying to project forward. And they love to do their triangulations because that's what actuaries do. They look at the history and they try to project the future. Underwriters, on the other hand, take the best of both. They look at what really happens, they look at what might happen, and then they adjust for the outliers, because that's what underwriters have to do. Meg can't adjust for outliers. She gets in trouble if she adjusts for outliers. Actuaries don't do it because they're not necessarily looking at the weeds. They're not in the weeds. They pull out some anomalies, but they're not looking into the weeds. And that's why you have to do financial underwriting for the town. That's why you have to get into the weeds. So many times we look at numbers and we're giving a big number like this. Well, you're gonna find out why that number is that big number. I'll give you a good example. We always talk in this town when we do tax rates about the difference between residential and commercial. And by extension, we include industrial and personal property in that discussion. But you really need to separate commercial, industrial, and personal property and understand the components of that. What makes up each one of those. And then in the commercial, in the town like Carver, you really need to understand what commercial is made up of. It's not just, across the street. It's not just up in North Carver. It's all the chapter land. All the chapter land is listed as commercial in this town. It gets the commercial tax rate. But it's not valued the same way that those are done. They're based on market value. Chapter land is based upon the state coming up with their farmland valuation. And cities and towns have to accept it, or they can fight it. Last time I looked, in 20-plus years of seeing what they've done, we don't fight it. We accept what they do. So that's the big differences. And personal property, most of personal property, town assessors can't do anything about it because it's all utilities. It's all the N-Stars. It's all the AT&T, the Singular, the new solar things. They tell us how much they're valued at. So the only thing, when you listen to the assessors, they talk about commercial, talk about residential. Those are the two things that they can look at. And industrial is such a small piece, it just gets thrown in there. But they don't tell about the things that they can't talk about. So that's why you have to go in the weeds. That's why you have to really carve out, and I always use that as what we did to the personal property is we came up with the Carver out approach. Because as far as we've been told for the last 8 or 9 years, I don't know if we're the only one that is using the tax levy the way that we are, but I can tell you from everything I read in the paper, town after town is doing debt exclusions and overrides, debt exclusion and override. And we don't have a good track record of debt exclusion and overrides. We might do one every 30 years.
It's funny you should say that, because we went to the MMA thing in Sharon the other day, and they're building a brand-new high school. You were there. $100 million is Sharon's percentage, that's their piece. $1,600 levy per household to build this school. This is on top of your taxes now.
Debt exclusion.
Yep.
Debt exclusion,
It's $1,600
$1,600 debt
$160
exclusion.
million total, something like that. 100 goes straight.
Well, that's a far cry from the one that the new one they built in, not Brookline, Newton.
Yeah.
Was it like into 240 million?
40 million,
Yeah.
240 million. But I'll tell you right now, if you go out to the state's website, you see what the average tax bill in the town of Newton, it's like 15 grand or more a year. I mean, it's like, and they get no state aid. they get no state aid. I mean, very little. They get the minimum state aid.
They don't need it.
So they don't need it, right?
No, they don't.
But, no, but I mean, that's the important thing is it really
Sharon
need,
has a lot of regular working people living in it too. It's not the entire, it's not like Newton. It's not I have friends of mine that still live in Sharon and they work for a living.
Yeah.
right.
I mean, they're not high-priced doctors and lawyers making six figures. It's not.
Yeah.
So that's a real big deal. And the assistant finance chairman was there, the finance committee chairman was there. He said there's quite a few new for sale signs. So you've got people that are looking at this number saying, we gotta go.
Yep.
And that's the balancing act even for Carver.
It is, and that's kind of one of the reasons, I hate to, go back to 9 years ago, but, it really is, from us, it was a very difficult time, in 2010, and in prior years, the whole school, police, fire, I mean, everything was back and forth, from into the 90s. We started this conversation, like, it was no sooner had we opened up the sixth grade wing at the high school that we had to start the conversation of, okay, the fire station, it's 40 years old. The police station is 25 years old. The elementary school is, 30, and the back building, I mean, we knew we had to do something, but we just didn't know how to do it. We had and it was literally back and forth. We literally went, okay, let's start with police and fire. Okay, town meeting, approves it. Let's go to the voters. Down. Oh, okay, now it's the school's turn. All right, let's try the school approach. And originally, if I'm not mistaken, the original elementary school project started under the old SBA program, which was the old state program for funding schools, which was actually how the high school was built. And that was a horrible program. They lost millions and millions of dollars. It was so mismanaged. And so when the new MSBA came about, the decision on how to fund for the schools was that, if you remember, our sales tax went up like 1%. Well, they took that penny out of every dollar and they gave it to the MSBA. And what the MSBA did was, they said for every one of those pennies that they got, they were gonna go and borrow money. They borrowed money, they bonded that, so they were paying their loans with those pennies. And so what they could do is they could borrow a lot more money over a period of time, and with all these pennies. And so then they turn around and they give to the cities and towns the new allocations, which are all based upon per capita income, equalized values, municipal revenue growth factors. It was the same formula that was being used for Chapter 70, same formula that was being used for general aid. So everything was being worked the same way. The big difference, though, in the old days, in the SBA program, the state actually literally paid every year for your bond, 20 years, 25 years, their share. Under the new MSBA, when they're done, they sign off and everything, they write a check for their full amount. So the only debt is our debt. The state's done. And the way they figure it is, the faster we pay off debt, the less interest we're paying on our bonds, we can recycle that money and use it again. So I kind of took the approach that the state was doing with the MSBA to say, well, why can't we do that with our infrastructure? Why can't we do it with our buildings? But it's taken a different approach. And, for so many cities and towns, they've waited and waited and waited to do infrastructure. And as Pat will tell you, the project cost for the school, the elementary school, was in the low 20s originally, and then it just kept going up. Every year we didn't do something, it just kept going up and up and up until it got to the point where it was too much. We couldn't even get out of our own way, financially. And so we needed to do something different. And just like you would at home, right? If you have to maintain your infrastructure, your home, you have to carve it out of your existing revenue stream. Unless you can go figure out a way to, increase your salary or, borrow money from, Uncle Tom and, or, Aunt Sue or, whoever, has got the money.
Crash tickets.
So and that's the problem with some of these cities and towns. They're building these $100 million schools, and now they have to turn the taxpayers and say, pony it up. We're gonna be faced with it again. I mean, we got a 30-year-old high school. We're gonna be faced with it again.
I'll be retired by then.
So how did you leave this, when you talked about the update on the votes, and where do we stand on, where do you stand on forming this committee?
The committee, I'd like to do, and that's why down here, we're talking about meeting frequency and schedule. So what are your thoughts about doing a finance committee, exclusively a finance committee meeting when it's required, when it's needed? Now, we'll have to do one in July to sign off on the year end for you.
Yeah,
So-
beginning of July preferably.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Or if you have it ready by the last few days of June, we can do it then. But, the beginning of July, I'm good with. We could try to do it that first.
July 15th is the last day, and what happens is, like, our final
We
warrant
did
and
it
our
for you
final,
last year.
and our final payroll is like right around that time, so.
July 4th works for me. Everybody should be available. Nobody's working that day.
We're celebrating.
I don't think that's gonna work out very well.
Goes the barbecue.
Well, before you, I would like to propose, and I did it to you in an email, that I would like to spend time on
I'd like to
June
have the
27th.
27th be on, and it'd be your night.
Okay, well, I'll share the spotlight with somebody.
Well, I'd like that, and Adam, you came in a little late, so,
Yep.
I think you were actually CC'd in that email. No, you weren't. You sent it just to me. We're gonna set aside the 27th of June, which is a Thursday night, and that'll be when Steve's gonna come in and give us an evening with Steve, if you will. We're gonna have some
like a
historical
bring, like,
documentation. It
beverage
should be
in the
like,
wall.
Roger Whittaker. What was his name, the guy that did the storytelling? We could have an evening with Steve. Little guitar music in the background. Popcorn.
Popcorn's good.
I think that would be great. If you have handouts and stuff, if you had some.
Yeah, I would like to do that. I mean, I know you want to get back to setting your meeting dates, but I would like to do that. There's some things I would like to turn to you, Meg, and, through the assessor's office to get some information. I can validate a lot of stuff off
They
of
would
this,
love to help you with the assessment.
state's website. The state's website, but some things aren't easily obtained through the state website, so, one of the things I want to be able to publicly demonstrate is some of the things I've talked about at the select board meetings, which is, you need to understand how Proposition 2.5 works. You need to understand what things happen every year within Proposition, the 2.5, because just saying things go up, the levy goes up 2.5, really doesn't tell you the nuts and bolts of it. And, there's a lot of things that go on within 2.5 that people don't understand. And part of it is, if I were to say to you that, yes, tax levy goes up 2.5% per year, but the average single-family tax bill for the last since 1982, has gone up almost double that, gone up over 5%. And that's because of what happens within 2.5. Because it's not within anybody's control. The way it was designed was that the levy goes up. Doesn't have any impact to what happens with values. So values are always shifting within it. So you have residential. You used to have open space, but that's kind of gone by the wayside. Commercial, industrial, personal property. But then you have the pieces that go within that. What makes up commercial? What makes up personal property? Everybody used to think that personal property wasn't a big deal. But there's some of the stuff I'm going to show you, because now the DLS
It's
has
a
some
huge deal.
great information where you can actually look at all 351 cities and towns, look at it by county, look at it over the years, and see that we're one of 25 cities and towns, and mostly towns, that have almost 8% of their tax levy from personal property.
And that number's gonna go up as
Well,
we
it
start.
may, it may
Even though
not.
it's a decreasing number, it's still gonna go up with the projects that are coming on.
It may or may
Both
not.
the solar and
Because you don't,
that's-
the one thing you can't see in all of this, unless you go deep into the assessors database, is how much is utilities, You know, because utilities don't necessarily depreciate the way business depreciate. Everybody always thought that the personal property was primarily the cranberry growers. That's what everybody thought, cranberry growers. Or they thought it was Edaville. It's not. You know, most of Edaville's property is leased. They don't pay taxes on it. So Edaville is not, from a personal property perspective, a big taxpayer. Same thing with the mobile home park. Everybody figured the manufactured home pays all the taxes in town. Again, not true.
No, it's not.
So you need to really dial back, and not trying to target, you know, one group over another group, but it's really understanding that. So that's kind of things, you know, do it. So there's some things, because I know I'm gonna be telling some stuff that people are gonna be totally shocked by.
That's why I'd like to give you the floor for the night. I think that would work out. The only thing I'm gonna ask you to do is, I know that, and Meg won't tell you this, but I know that the assessing department's kind of upside down right now, so give her all the notice you can.
Yeah,
For
please.
whatever you need for information. She will, certainly, I'm sure she'll get it for you.
Yep.
But it's not gonna be as easy, because the lights are on down there, but there's nobody home.
Well, but the good news is, I have, because we had to,
I'm wrong?
Oh, you're right.
well.
Am I wrong?
You're not wrong.
Thank you.
Well, I can tell you, the good news is that
The assessors
a
are
lot
right.
of information that I got is all from 2014 and prior, because we needed it for the town building study committee, because it was the only way that we could convince the select board and the Collins Center to do the personal property and convince them that that was a way of doing it. So I have 2014, in some cases going back to all the way to 82. So I have a lot of information, but I need the filler from 2015 to 2019, so that's not too bad. You know,
So can we agree on the 27th? Is everybody that's present good for the 27th?
I have a conflict that night, unfortunately. I'm officiating my cousin's wedding.
Can you get married another night? Wait a minute, couldn't we do it here? No.
Anybody else? When are you going to Maine?
Well, it was around that time, but maybe not.
This is the only night that's good for you, Steve?
27th is best for me that next month. I got a lot of things going on during the early part of the month. I realize it's the week before the 4th, but plus I want some time to give me some time to refresh. You know, I've got this document that I prepared in 2014 for the, you know, the tax rate hearing, and I want to update it and.
Do you know what sort of information you're gonna be, just general
Just general
idea.
information?
Yeah.
I think some of it's probably available on the website. You know, cherry sheet receipts, well, this is not assessors,
That's the
but
assessing
cherry
piece.
receipts, assessments, net aid, and tax levy, which should be able to verify on the DLS website. But the more of the assessors piece of it, and I can send you these files so you can validate them. But on the assessors piece, let me get the right document. From 2015 on, so what, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19, right? Because I can get assessed values for 19. Residential new growth,
Oh, that's easy, I can get that.
chapter land values for each of the fiscal years.
Yeah.
The commercial new growth, industrial new growth, personal property new growth. And then I haven't validated the total values. Because one of the things that you're gonna find interesting in this, and I'll just put this aside, but in the 14 years between 2000 and 2014, we actually had $90 million of new personal property growth. But
It doesn't
the
translate to that.
value only increased $54 million. And that's because the majority of that new growth was created by NSTAR and now Eversource, and they get to take 28% off their value.
So their valuation increased that much, but the actual new growth would have
The
been a
growth
much
was
smaller
90,
number.
no, the growth is higher, but their actually value and the taxes they pay is much lower.
But you're talking like new growth added to that year's tax levy?
Yeah, so the new growth added to the tax levy based on the gross original cost, but they only pay taxes on the net original cost.
Right.
So what ends up happening is, in this case here, $35 million of value had to be redistributed to the other tax groups. And it's not just, and it isn't, it's a gift that keeps on giving, because it's year after year. It's not a one-time thing. It's a gift that's always there. So that's why residential tax bills go up higher, because we can't do that as our homes. We don't get to depreciate our homes, because then based on market value. You know, the one thing about property taxes is that they're extremely regressive tax, because there's no presumption of your ability to pay them. It's not based on income. You know, businesses' values are based upon generally income-based or market value, because it's based upon how much income they can generate, because a lot of them are rentals or leases. So, but you can't do that at your home. You can't go into the assessors and say, but I didn't make enough money to pay these taxes. So those are the kind of things we'll look at. And like I said, the state's website has gotten really good, because they're combining income, equalized value, single-family home tax bills, so that you can look by city and city, town by town, to see what percentage of income, per capita income, is being used on your property tax bill. And you can see where Carver is relative to other towns within the county. You can see it relative to other towns of similar size, similar values. So there's a lot of things you can do now on the state website that you couldn't do
Yeah, they changed it a lot.
10 years ago. I mean, the DLS, really, because they have a lot of data. They have a ton of data.
Yeah, I got set
It's
up
called the
on-
Municipal Data Bank
I
for a
get into
reason. It's everything you want to know.
Took a little bit, but I'm
Yeah.
in.
And the same thing is true with the DESE.
It wasn't for Meg, I'd never be there.
Yeah, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has a wealth of data. All of the end-of-year reports that the schools have to prepare, all of the district analysis resource tool. I mean, just an incredible amount of information. It just takes time to absorb it. It takes time to analyze it, to really,
I'm going to put this on for the 27th of June, and I'm sorry.
No, I understand, and I can catch up.
Well, we
Watch the
video, that's the
and-
reason we do
and
it.
you're gonna get the data. You're gonna get this.
And you get the
so.
data anyway. So let's potentially, we'll stick it on for the 27th. I'll send out an email tomorrow to the entire group of the next of that meeting being what it is, that it's going to be a session with Steve. And then I don't think there's going to be really anything. The grant program application I'll finish up, and I'm going to send a copy of this to everybody in a PDF format so you all can see it. If there's anything else that's been left out, then it's okay for you to notify me individually. Don't send out a group. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So if you find a word spelled wrong, don't send it to all 12 recipients. But you can send it back to the chair, and then I can correct it and send out another copy to all 12 recipients. So that's okay. We don't run afoul of the open meeting laws.
Never hit reply all.
Yeah, never hit reply all.
That's probably just a good general rule, right? Don't you
Yeah.
think?
Kind of,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Well, I get month-end reports from Megs, and if I ever hit reply all, I don't even know how you compile that list.
It's saved.
It's
It's
enormous.
It's a distribution list.
It's a distribution.
Yeah.
list,
Yeah.
But the other, the way you avoid distribution lists from being public is you put your distribution list in a blind carbon copy, and that way people can't reply all. But then you don't necessarily know who got it. But that's okay. You know.
Yeah, sometimes, I do get some stuff that says, it says to me and others, but there's nobody else listed. So you just don't do a reply all. But anyway, I think we should have the session with Steve. I would like to see, what's the thoughts on just a quick meeting, and I do mean a quick meeting, on the 13th, which is the Thursday, 2 weeks before the 27th. The reason I'm asking for a quick meeting, we can reorganize, we can completely firmly establish who's going to be sitting with the school committee, who's sitting with the Board of Selectmen, invite them to come in and get the groundwork, just the groundwork. And I do mean, it's not a 3-hour marathon meeting. It's going to be just, this is what we'd like. And, you know, if it's an hour and a half tops, is anybody unavailable on the 13th?
I most likely am not.
Well, that's why, but you're going to be on the 27th, so.
Right now, I believe.
As far as I know, yeah.
And you're still a member? And you're okay with it? And we'll get a hold of the other, and Pat, you're all right with it? Are you okay with the 13th? All right, so let's put the 13th in for a FinCom quick meeting. You want to do 7 o'clock, still good for everybody?
Yeah.
And then the 27th is another FinCom meeting, but it's going to be Steve's night. For those that want to partake. 7 o'clock, good for you, Steve? Or do you want to do earlier?
7 o'clock is fine. Should be. The first hour is going to be history of Carver, or the last 200 and...
The next 3 hours are going to be the lecture, and then
Since
there's going to be,
1790,
I
right?
assume there's
That's
test time after that, right?
29 years, 39.
Bill's already in his pickup truck heading for Maine.
I'll Skype it.
Okay, so we're going to do the 13th and the 27th. So with that, do you want to table the minutes from the May 9th meeting because of the lack of a full board, or do you want to vote on them? Steve was here for a portion of it, John can't.
I'd probably abstain.
Adam, you were here. So actually, if you abstain, why don't we, I would entertain a motion to
Motion to
table the
table.
minutes. Thank you.
Table, second.
Motion made and seconded to table the minutes. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those will be tabled to the 13th of June. Committee member updates. Anybody other than Steve? Did you bring a note? Need to bring a note when you're late.
I apologize.
No big deal.
For the,
I'm just giving you a hard time. Certainly not a problem. We've got there are no topics. We have the next meeting is set up. The next meeting date and time is set up. Anybody else? That's it?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second? Motion made and seconded to adjourn. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Good night.